Have you ever felt completely paralyzed by fear, distraction, or overwhelming emotion right when you needed to act with absolute clarity? Do you know someone who crumbles under pressure, despite knowing exactly what to do, trapped in cycles of procrastination, anxiety, or reactive outbursts? What if I told you the samurai achieved a level of self-discipline so profound it terrified their enemies, not through brute force or endless motivation, but through an immovable inner state? This is Fudōshin, the immovable mind, from Japanese martial arts and Zen-influenced samurai philosophy, rooted in the guardian deity Fudō-myo, who embodies calm resolve amid chaos. Most people approach discipline wrong. They suppress emotions, rely on willpower bursts, or try to eliminate fear and doubt entirely, which only exhausts them and leads to relapse. The core idea of the Fudōshin method is transformation through acceptance and training, not suppression or forgetting, but forging a mind that remains unshaken while fully aware of every storm. This is the scariest discipline because it demands you face reality without flinching, yet it brings unbreakable calm and power. If this resonates with your own battles, stay with me. This video is dedicated to anyone ready to stop being moved by life and start moving through it with immovable resolve. Now, back to the video. Have you ever sat at your desk, staring at an important task, knowing exactly what needs to be done, yet your body refuses to move? The cursor blinks accusingly, while your mind races with every possible reason why now is not the right time. Meet Alex. At 32, he is a skilled software engineer, a devoted husband, and a loving father to a young daughter. From the outside, his life looks solid. Steady job, comfortable home in the suburbs, weekends filled with family outings. But beneath that surface runs a current of quiet desperation. Each morning begins with good intentions. Alex reviews his goals. Finish the critical feature for the upcoming release. Prepare for the team meeting. Yet by midday, the familiar weight settles in. Self-doubt, whispering that his code will never be good enough, that his colleagues secretly judge his contributions. The task list grows longer while he switches between tabs, answers emails that could wait, scrolls through notifications that demand nothing of real importance. Procrastination isn't laziness here, it's fear wearing a mask. By evening, the pressure builds to a breaking point. Tonight, it's something small. His daughter spills juice on the new rug. The stain spreads slowly, and something inside Alex snaps. His voice rises sharp and sudden. "Why can't you be more careful?" The words land harder than he intended. His wife looks up startled. His daughter's eyes fill with tears. The room goes quiet, except for the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He storms to his office, slams the door, sits in the dark. Guilt floods in immediately, hot and suffocating. How could he speak to them like that? He knows better. He promises himself tomorrow will be different. He'll be calmer, more disciplined, more in control. But deep down, a part of him doubts it. This is the cycle most of us know too well. We try to force discipline through sheer willpower, battling every wave of emotion, every flicker of doubt, as if the mind should be a machine that obeys without question. We fight the natural turbulence, fear, frustration, uncertainty, instead of learning to stabilize within it. And because we fight, we exhaust ourselves. The harder we push against the storm, the more violently it throws us back. Ordinary discipline fails precisely because it treats the mind like an enemy to be conquered, rather than a force to be understood and centered. What Alex needs, what so many of us need, is something deeper. Something the samurai cultivated through centuries of facing life and death stakes. Fudōshin, the immovable mind. Not the absence of movement within, but the presence of an unshakable center, no matter how fierce the winds become. Alex refused to accept defeat. The next morning after another collapse, he downloaded 3 new productivity apps, set ironclad daily schedules, and bookmarked motivational channels, promising unbreakable discipline. He told himself this time would be different. He would outwork the doubt, outlast the fear. For a few days it almost worked. The alarms rang at 5 a.m. He sat at his desk, coffee steaming, forcing himself through lines of code. Checklists were ticked. He repeated affirmations under his breath. I am in control. I can do this. The surface looked disciplined. Then came the real test. A tight deadline from his manager, followed by a single critical comment in code review. This needs rethinking, it's not scalable. The words landed like a physical blow. Within seconds, Alex's chest tightened, his palms grew damp, his thoughts narrowed to one certainty. I'm failing again. The rational part of his mind knew the feedback was routine, even helpful, but the threat response had already taken over. His amygdala, that ancient alarm system, interpreted the criticism as danger, failure, rejection, loss of status. Blood flow shifted away from the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning and self-control. Focus dissolved. Instead of addressing the comment, Alex closed the laptop, paced the room, then opened social media to numb the rising panic. Hours later, the deadline was closer, the work untouched, and the shame twice as heavy. This is the suffering loop. Willpower seems strong until the brain registers threat. Then it hijacks attention, turning intention into avoidance. The more Alex pushed more routines, more positivity, more effort, the tighter the grip became. Every failed attempt reinforced the belief that he simply wasn't disciplined enough, deepening the very fear he was trying to defeat. Most people believe discipline is about forcing harder or thinking happier thoughts. But force meets force, and positivity without grounding becomes another form of suppression. The loop tightens because we fight the mind's natural warning signals instead of learning to witness them without being carried away. What Alex was missing was a way to stay centered when the storm arrived, not to eliminate it, but to remain unmoved within it. That is where Fudōshin begins to matter. Late one sleepless night, after another day lost to the loop, Alex sat at his kitchen table with his laptop open. He wasn't looking for philosophy. He was searching how to stop panicking under pressure and overcome procrastination for good. The usual articles appeared tips about Pomodoro timers, dopamine detoxes, morning routines. He scrolled past them, numb. Then a suggested result caught his eye, a used paperback listed on an online bookstore, titled The Unfettered Mind by Takuan Soho, with a subtitle mentioning samurai psychology and Zen. The cover showed a simple ink drawing of a warrior in stillness. On impulse, he ordered it. When the book arrived 2 days later, Alex opened it during lunch break, expecting little more than historical curiosity. He read slowly at first, then faster. Takuan described how the mind, when gripped by fear of death or failure, becomes fixed on one point and loses its natural flow. The skilled swordsman, he wrote, achieves Fudōshin, the immovable mind remaining calm and responsive even as danger surrounds him. Alex paused on a passage about warriors facing certain death without flinching, their clarity so complete it unnerved their opponents. He felt something stir, not inspiration exactly, but recognition. These men hadn't suppressed fear. They had trained to let it pass through without taking the helm. A quiet hope flickered. Could this ancient idea, Fudōshin, possibly reach into his modern chaos of deadlines, family stress, and self-doubt? Part of him scoffed. Samurai battles were nothing like software bugs or toddler tantrums. Yet another part refused to dismiss it outright. For the first time in months, the struggle felt less blind. He closed the book and stared at the wall. Blind effort had failed. Maybe seeking something deeper was the only path left. The book had planted a seed, but Alex needed someone to show him how to tend it. After weeks of hesitant searching, he found a small dojo on the edge of town, more community center than temple, run by Hiroshi Tanaka, a 63-year-old Japanese-American who had spent decades studying Aikido, Iaido, and Zen, while also training as a licensed therapist. Reviews described him as quiet, direct, and unusually patient with people who arrived broken. Alex sat across from Hiroshi in a plain room smelling faintly of incense and polished wood. No ceremonial robes, just a simple black gi and steady eyes that seemed to see past the surface story Alex told about work stress and family tension. Hiroshi listened without interrupting. When Alex finished, the older man spoke slowly, his voice low and measured. "Fudōshin," he said, "means immovable mind, or more precisely, immovable heart-mind. The character Fudō comes from Fudō-myo, the guardian deity in Buddhist tradition, fierce in appearance, sword raised, flames behind him, yet his face remains perfectly calm. That is the image, calm ferocity. Not the absence of storm, but the center that does not move while the storm rages." Alex shifted. "So it's about not feeling anything, becoming numb?" Hiroshi shook his head once. "No, the opposite. Discipline is not becoming emotionless. If you try to kill fear, anger, doubt, you only give them more power they hide, then strike harder. Fudōshin is developing a center so rooted that no pull, no matter how strong, can drag you from it. The emotions still come, you feel them completely, but they do not decide your next move. You do." He leaned forward slightly. "Most people are moved by life. The immovable mind moves through life. That is the difference." Alex felt the words settle somewhere deep. For the first time, the idea didn't sound like another impossible standard. It sounded like permission to feel everything and still stand firm. A few sessions later, Hiroshi led Alex to the center of the dojo mat. They sat facing each other in seiza, the quiet broken only by distant traffic. "Fudōshin is equanimity under pressure," Hiroshi began. "Fear arises, anger flares, doubt whispers. These are natural, they are allowed to exist, but they do not decide. You remain rooted in the present moment, and from that root, you act." Alex frowned. "So I just let them happen? Won't that make me weak?" "No, suppression makes you brittle. You push the emotion down, it builds pressure, then explodes or freezes you. Acknowledgement is different. You see the wave clearly, feel its full force, yet you do not ride it. You stay on the shore." Hiroshi paused. "People confuse this with mushin no mind, the pure flow state of effortless action. Mushin is beautiful, but it arrives when the mind is already empty of clinging. Fudōshin is the foundation that allows mushin to appear. It carries resolute determination, calm on the surface, fiercely committed underneath. Like Fudō-myo, sword raised to cut through illusion, yet his expression never wavers." He met Alex's eyes. "True imperturbability is not the absence of disturbance. It is the presence of an unshakable center that chooses response over reaction. That is what makes it powerful. And that is why it feels, at first, so frightening." Hiroshi did not offer Alex a long list of techniques. He gave him 2 simple, demanding practices and asked for consistency above all else. "Every morning before the world wakes," Hiroshi said, "sit in zazen. 10 minutes to start. No cushion if it feels too comfortable, use the floor. Cross your legs or kneel, spine straight, eyes half open, gazing at the wall. Breathe naturally through the nose. When thoughts come, work worries, anger from yesterday, the urge to check your phone, do not fight them. Do not follow them. See them rise, feel their pull, and let them pass like clouds across an empty sky. The practice is observation without attachment." Alex nodded, though the idea already felt restless. "Then," Hiroshi continued, "move. Learn one simple kata from our style, 10 repetitions, slow and precise, each step rooted, each breath deliberate. When fatigue sets in, when the mind says, 'enough,' notice it. Feel the impulse to quit or rush. Do not obey. Finish the form exactly as begun. This is how the body learns what the mind must remember. Stability is not the absence of discomfort, it is remaining present through it. Alex began the next morning in his dim living room. 10 minutes felt endless. Thoughts crashed in waves, deadlines, guilt, the familiar itch to escape into distraction. His back ached. Twice he almost stood up. Each time he noticed the urge, breathed into it, and stayed seated. No judgment, no force, just witnessing. Afterward, he performed the kata, movements deliberate and unhurried. Sweat appeared not from exertion, but from the effort of refusing to hurry. When the final bow came, something small shifted. The discomfort had been there, fully felt, yet it had not won. Hiroshi's teaching was clear. Fudōshin does not arrive through comfort or avoidance. It grows slowly, quietly, through daily intentional exposure to the inner storm, without running, without freezing, without pretending it isn't there. 10 minutes at a time, one breath at a time. The foundation is built not by conquering the mind, but by learning to stand unshaken within it. The practices had started to feel almost routine. 10 minutes of zazen each morning, the slow kata in the evening, small anchors in a sea of chaos. Alex noticed the difference in quiet moments. A deadline would loom. The familiar tightness would begin in his chest, but he could breathe through it, watch it rise, and return to the task. He told himself the foundation was holding. Then the storm arrived without warning. A major client project, already delayed, received an urgent escalation. Deliver the core module by end of week or face contract penalties. The email landed at 8:47 a.m. Within minutes, the old panic flooded back, hot, sharp, louder than before. Thoughts raced. I'm going to fail. They'll see I'm not good enough. The amygdala lit up like an alarm, focus narrowed to survival. He opened his laptop, intending to push through. Instead, he stared at the screen, frozen. The urge to escape overwhelmed him. He closed the meditation app without sitting. That evening, he skipped the kata entirely, told himself he was too tired, too stressed, that tomorrow would be better. At the next team stand-up, a colleague asked a simple, clarifying question about the code. Alex's response came sharp and defensive. If you'd read the comments, you'd know. The room went quiet. He saw the surprise on their faces, felt the heat rise in his own. He muttered an apology later, but the damage was done. He didn't show up for his session with Hiroshi that week. Shame kept him away. Shame that after weeks of effort, the old patterns had swallowed him whole. He avoided the dojo, avoided his phone when Hiroshi texted to check in. How could he face the man who had taught him stillness when he had crumbled so completely? This is the moment many quit. Initial training reveals the depth of conditioning we carry. Intellectual understanding, knowing what Fudōshin means, feeling glimpses of calm, is not the same as embodiment. The mind can grasp the concept in safety. The body and nervous system must learn it under real pressure. Relapse is not failure of the method. It is the method showing exactly where the work must go deeper. The storm had not destroyed the foundation. It had exposed the cracks still hidden beneath the surface. 2 weeks passed before Alex returned to the dojo. He arrived early, head lowered, expecting judgment. Hiroshi greeted him with the same quiet nod, no trace of disappointment. They sat on the mat in silence for a long moment. You ran, Hiroshi said simply. That is not failure, that is information. Alex exhaled. I thought I was getting it. Then the pressure came and everything collapsed. I skipped practice, snapped at people, hid from you. How is that progress? Hiroshi leaned forward slightly. Because the storm revealed what was still hidden. Before, you avoided the full force of fear and shame. You numbed it with routines or distractions. Now the method forced you to face it directly, without escape. That confrontation is the beginning of real change. He continued, voice steady. Science calls it neuroplasticity. Repeated, non-reactive observation, sitting with the emotion, feeling its heat without acting on it, strengthens the connection between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. The alarm system still sounds, but the rational mind regains the ability to respond instead of react. Over time, the loop weakens. You don't eliminate the storm, you learn not to be swept away by it. Alex looked up. So Fudōshin isn't no disturbance at all?
Never, Hiroshi replied.
Disturbance is life. Fudōshin is non-identification. The wave rises in you, panic, anger, doubt, but you do not become the wave. You remain the shore, watching, choosing. That is why relapse is not defeat. It is the teacher showing you exactly where the center still needs to be fortified. For the first time since the breakdown, Alex felt something loosen in his chest. Not relief exactly, but recognition. The storm had not broken him. It had begun to teach him how to stand within it. Chapter 9. Gradual Transformation. The Mind Begins to Settle. Alex returned to the practices with a different energy, not desperate hope, but quiet determination. He no longer expected the storm to vanish. He expected to meet it. Every morning he sat for 15 minutes now, longer when the mind resisted most. In the dojo, the kata grew smoother, each repetition a reminder that stability could coexist with effort. The real test came in daily life. During a heated argument with his wife over forgotten responsibilities, the old heat rose in his throat. Instead of snapping back, he noticed the tightening chest, the racing pulse. He breathed once deeply into the sensation. The words he wanted to say hovered, then passed. He spoke calmly. "I hear you. Let's figure this out together." The conversation shifted. Tension eased without explosion. At work, fatigue hit hard on a long coding session. Doubt crept in. "You're too tired. Tomorrow will be better." He felt the pull to quit, acknowledged it fully, then chose to keep typing one deliberate line at a time. The task finished late, but finished. Month by month, these small wins accumulated. He delivered under pressure without freezing. He received criticism and responded with questions instead of defensiveness. Colleagues began to notice the change, a quiet steadiness that hadn't been there before. Hiroshi watched it unfold. One evening he said, "True discipline is frightening at first because it takes away every excuse. No more hiding behind, 'I'm in a bad mood' or 'the circumstances aren't right.' You feel everything, the fear, the exhaustion, the doubt, and you act anyway. That is what makes it powerful. The mind settles not because the world becomes easier, but because you no longer wait for ease to begin." Alex nodded slowly. The center he had once chased now felt closer, not perfect, not unbreakable yet, but present, and growing stronger with each deliberate choice. The true measure of any practice arrives not in calm moments, but in crisis. For Alex, that moment came on a rainy Tuesday evening. His daughter, barely 5, woke with a high fever that refused to break. By midnight she was listless, breathing shallow. His wife's face drained of color as they bundled her into the car for the emergency room. In the past, Alex would have unraveled panic flooding his thoughts, snapping at nurses, second-guessing every decision, or retreating into helpless silence. This time the fear arrived, sharp and familiar, but it did not take the wheel. He felt the tightness in his chest, the racing pulse, the whisper of worst-case scenarios. He breathed once, slow, deliberate, acknowledged the wave fully, then let it pass without clinging. From that still center, he acted. He drove steadily, spoke clearly to the triage nurse, asked precise questions of the doctor. While his wife held their daughter's hand, Alex handled calls to work, arranged childcare for the next day, kept family updated without alarm. Through the long hours in the sterile room, he stayed present, comforting, coordinating, supporting without once breaking. Days later, back at the office, a high-stakes presentation loomed under executive scrutiny. Questions came sharp. One senior manager challenged his approach directly. The old instinct to freeze flickered, then faded. Alex met the gaze, breathed into the momentary heat of doubt, and answered with calm precision. The room shifted, the tone softened. Colleagues later remarked on his quiet confidence, not bravado, but something steadier, more reliable. This was Fudōshin in action. Not the absence of pressure or emotion, not superhuman strength, but a center that held firm. Fear still rose, uncertainty still circled, yet Alex remained unshaken, present, deliberate, choosing response over reaction. The shift was subtle to the outside eye, profound within. He no longer waited for the storm to pass. He moved through it, centered, and the people around him felt the difference. One quiet evening in the dojo, after months of steady practice, Hiroshi spoke plainly while they sat together on the mat. "This is the Fudōshin system in its simplest form," he said. 5 steps, repeated daily, for life. First, daily seated observation. Return to zazen each morning, even for 10 minutes. Sit and watch the mind without grasping or pushing away. Awareness grows here, the foundation of everything else. Second, physical embodiment through disciplined movement. Practice your kata, or any rooted form, with full attention. Let the body learn what stillness feels like amid effort. Third, deliberate exposure to discomfort without escape. When fear, fatigue, or anger arises in daily life, do not run or suppress. Stay present. Feel it completely. Fourth, non-reactive choice in the moment. From that rooted awareness, decide your action not from impulse, but from the center. Response, not reaction. Fifth, compassionate return after lapses. When you fall back into old patterns, and you will, do not punish yourself. Notice, forgive, and return to the practice without delay. Hiroshi looked at Alex steadily. This is not a technique to master and finish. It is a lifelong forging. An immovable core is built through acceptance of what is, combined with resolute commitment to what you choose next. The mind will always move. The center you cultivate does not have to. Alex felt the weight of the words settle, not as burden, but as clarity. The path stretched ahead, endless yet simple. No final arrival, only deeper presence, one breath at a time. Alex now moves through his days with a quiet power that once felt impossible. The same storms still arrive, deadlines, family tensions, unexpected setbacks. But they no longer sweep him away. Discipline has transformed from endless inner warfare into something simpler and more profound, standing firm while the wind howls around him. He feels everything, the fear, the frustration, the doubt, yet he chooses his next step from a center that does not waver. If you have followed this far, pause for a moment. Ask yourself honestly, what would change in your life if your mind became immovable, not cold or detached, but unshakably present amid every pull and push? In the comments below, share one area where reactivity still controls you. Perhaps anger in arguments, procrastination under pressure, or anxiety that freezes you. How do you think the Fudōshin approach might help you meet that challenge differently? If these ideas touched something real in you, consider subscribing for more explorations of ancient wisdom applied to modern battles. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next level of insight. Thank you for watching with me. May your mind, step by step, find its unmovable center.